Quick question.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining today's recording. The recording will now begin.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lizette Figueroa, and we are here for day 5, where we will be going over our language guides, telephone numbers, census website, a little bit of the marketing and media information, as well as we'll cover some professionalism and quick tips on dress code and work ethic. Joining us as well as a co-presenter is Misty Slater.
Hello. I'm a media specialist for Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada, and I'm going over the media section.
And we'll go through a brief introduction of how, a little bit about our websites, some quick tips, and then common questions that we get asked in the field that will help you do your job a little bit easier. So please feel free to ask questions. At the end of the message, at the end of the presentation, we'll definitely give you a little bit of guidance on what to expect. But for anything else, you can always contact your local partnership specialist or your local media specialist. Okay. As we get going, so as you know, we have already started our invitations have already gone out. Most of the people in the country have already received their invitation, and as of this week, most people will actually start getting their paper questionnaire since they've already received a couple of reminders. So this is the sample invitation of what to expect. It gives you just a little bit of introduction. I think it's very important that everybody knows, why we do the census. It's a quick, basic information of how the results affect our daily life. As many of you may know, it directs billions of dollars in federal funds to our local communities, not just for schools, roads, and other public services, but it also gives, right now with COVID-19, it also gives critical services to hospitals, to emergency planning, to our public safety. So I think it's very important that people know the importance of it. It also helps all levels of government prepare for transportation needs and for great projects. And it determines the number of seats each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives. So it is in the Constitution that we do have an enumeration of the population every 10 years. And that is how we get our voice in Congress, not just on a local level, but there in Washington, D.C. as well. As we go through the mailings, this is a quick overview of what we send in the mail. So on the left-hand side, you will see the schedule of when our initial invitations went out. So we started the week of March 12th, and where we are right now. So right now we are sending another reminder letter, and then, as I mentioned earlier, the paper questionnaire. So we are in the week of April 8th through the 16th. We did put out a couple of press releases saying that we are pushing our in-field operations. So a couple of those timelines have changed. And then we will have all of that information available on our 2020 Census.gov website. So if you want to go ahead and check those out, please make sure you go onto our website for the most up-to-date information. Very important that everybody knows what our website to self-respond is on. So you can respond now on the My 2020 Census.gov. It also gives you the information for the toll-free phone number, and we'll go through a little bit more on the toll-free phone numbers, some of the great resources that are available to you, and then a couple of questions that we usually get. At the bottom, there is also the message in Spanish. So for anybody who speaks Spanish, the message down below also gives you that phone number, so we can go ahead and respond. And then we'll go ahead, and then Misty, do you want to give us a little bit of information on all of our advertising and promotional outreach that's available on our 2020 Census.gov page?
We have a lot of different information for public. What? We have a lot of information out on our 2020 Census.gov website, outreach material, pamphlets, or informational sheets that you can look at and use yourself. We're directing all the promotional outreach, including paid advertising, back to our 2020 Census.gov site throughout the duration of the Integrated Partnership and Communication campaign. Team Y&R is our liaison for our Integrated communications campaign. And if you see commercials on TV or if you hear them on the radio waves, that's from Team YNR. The 2020 Census.gov will also feature a prominent Respond Now button once the invitation to participate is delivered to households, which already has begun March 12th. In addition to providing education and outreach materials that explain what the census is and why it's important to respond, there are dedicated pages in 59 languages that are easy to get to and will include important video and print guides on how to complete the census questionnaire. The direct website to respond online is my2020census.gov. That URL and a unique census ID are included in the Census Bureau invitation mailings to households that have been delivered already between March 12th and March 20th. So it's easy to respond, and you don't need that census ID if they, for some reason, have not gotten their mailer, they don't know what they did with it. They can go on and put their address in, so they can still respond without the census ID. And now, starting April 8th, they should be getting a paper questionnaire in the mail if they have yet to respond online or by phone.
And Misty, I get a lot of questions from a lot of partners saying, well, you guys have made the website available, in the 12 non-English languages. What about all the other 59 languages? And something that, I think a couple of partners have brought up is our language guides are in 59 other non-English languages. When you open those language guides up, it does a quick 101. So there's nothing stopping them from using those 59 language guides to just print off the first or second page and use those as a quick census 101 without having to print, the entire language guide as additional material to introduce information on the census. So I think our team did a great job, at least on making it very inclusive. I think if you can give us a little bit more information on the language guides, that'd be great.
They really went above and beyond trying to make it as inclusive as possible. Not only do we have all the other languages that the Census Bureau knows are spoken in the United States, they also have American Sign Language, and they have it in large print. So they have really tried to make this as easy as possible for everybody to self-respond. Now, the language guides, they can actually, if they're doing it online, they can pull up the language guide in one tab and they can read it, and it will give them step-by-step instructions to the English version if their language isn't supported in the self-response online. So they can go back and forth. We also have videos that will go through and show them step-by-step how to respond to the census questionnaire. So it's great. How long does it take to complete the census? I completed my census for a family of 5, and I did not use the census ID because I wanted to see if it took longer, and it took me 3 minutes to fill it out.
That's amazing.
Right.
You definitely beat me on that. I think it took me 5 minutes to complete mine, but there was just 2 of us.
Yeah, I got that typing skills down pretty good about throwing that stuff in. But, I mean, I've heard some people when they have done, the Spanish speakers, it's taken them about the same amount of time as it's taking you or me, between 3 to 5 minutes. So it's fast, it's easy, it's secure, and it's accessible to everyone to do.
Yeah, and then before we move on, I do want to point out on the right, you can see the page where we took a snippet of the main page for the questionnaire, and you do see that there is an American flag that says an official website of the United States government, and then it has a little link that says here's how you know, and it drops down and it gives the two examples. So the .gov means it's official, and then the lock icon says that the site is secure. So I want to make sure that for everybody who is out there, to make sure that you look out for that, to make sure that you are on the correct website. All of our websites have the .gov because it's, a government website, and it does have the site is secure because your information is encrypted. So we want to make sure that you are aware of those icons to make sure that you protect your information.
Yes, that's very important. Make sure you're on the correct site because there are scammers and fraudsters out there that try to collect people's information. So you make sure you go to my2020census.gov and you know you're on the right site.
Okay, so as we move on, Misty covered a little bit and gave a little bit more information on the 2020 Census Language Program overview. And is this correct, Misty? So I've heard that with our entire program overview, it actually covers about 99% of the language need in the U.S. Is that correct?
That is correct. The Census Bureau being, a data company or corporation in a way where they bring all this data in through all their different surveys, know from all this knowledge that they have that these are the languages spoken in the United States. The 13 that the internet self-response and the phone lines are in are the majority. They're the big top 13 languages spoken in the United States. And then they know from other data that the other languages in the language guides aren't as popular or as large in population, but they are here and they have a decent amount of speakers. So they provided all those language identification cards and language guides so they could respond on their own as well instead of having a census taker have to come to their house.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned a little bit, I know we had pulled up in the last slide, we had showed you the internet self-response page. So, and we'll go through the next page, which kind of gives you a little bit more information, but just want to make sure everybody can see all the languages. So on the internet self-response page, you will be able to see all of those language options, and they'll automatically be translated in that language up at the top as well as at the bottom of the main page. So you do have that option, and the entire page translates, which is very, I thought it was awesome the first time I was able to actually toggle through all of the languages. The entire page translates, and anytime throughout the questionnaire, you can actually toggle to any of these languages. So it's not like if you chose Spanish, on accident, you're stuck with that language for the entire questionnaire and you're going to have to start all over. You can actually toggle through any of the languages throughout the entire questionnaire and continue, which I thought that was great that they made that very easy and user-friendly.
Yes, it is very user-friendly. They really have tried to make it as painless as possible for the respondent to go on there and respond.
So we did get a question in our chat box that says, can someone experiencing homelessness use the internet self-response? And the answer is yes. So anybody, and we're going to cover this a little bit more on, I put this as a scenario on another of our trainings. So on day 2, we will kind of go into this a little bit more in depth. But yes, anybody who is experiencing homelessness can use the internet self-response option to complete the census. They can also call the toll-free phone number. It actually will ask you a series of questions on the internet self-response portal. If you do not have an address, if you do not have a census ID, if you're on a rural route, are you experiencing homelessness? So it does, so based on your answers, it will trigger a couple of follow-up questions, but definitely it is available. Anybody experiencing homelessness or couch surfing or, in between gigs can go ahead and definitely self-respond. So, and we'll make sure we will give you a little bit, like I said, we'll cover that a little bit more in depth on the day 2 on internet self-response and the paper questionnaire training, so you'll have a little bit more information on that. But great question. So before we move on, I do want to go ahead and point out that as Misty had mentioned, for the language guides, the glossaries, and the language identification cards, all of those are available in those 59 non-English languages, and those video guides are really useful. A lot of our partners have actually, before COVID-19 came, they said that they were playing all of these, they were going to plan on playing all of these videos kind of on a loop. A lot of libraries said that they will just have stations where they would be unmanned, and they would have all of our videos playing on a loop based on the audience and the population there that mostly frequents their library. So, for example, here I'm located in Spokane. There was a library that said that they would be able to play the Russian video on a loop. And then based on what whoever comes in, they had all of these available. So there's so many ways to use them to make sure that we can increase self-response, but also make sure that it's diversely available to everybody. Okay, and then we are moving on to the next. As we move on to the next slide, I think it's just loading. Here we go, the toll-free phone numbers. So, Misty, can you give us a little bit more information on the toll-free phone numbers?
Well, we have the toll-free phone numbers in 13 languages, the same that are on the online self-response, and they'll be full service in all languages, and it started March 12th, and it'll be going on until the end of the self-response, which I believe now is August 14th. You might need to give them a little bit of time since they are spaced out for the 6-beat rule right now, and it might be a little bit longer of a wait time, but they are there, and we still have all the 13 languages available. It just might take a little bit longer.
Definitely, and I think in the next slide we're going to go a little bit more in depth, and we actually were able to go ahead and list all of the language lines as well as TDD and all the toll-free phone numbers, where you can actually just for a lot of partners, I know they didn't want to list all the language guidelines, but they could just print the toll-free phone number of their specific language on materials. So I know they're sending a couple of postcards. So, for example, if you wanted to send a couple or print materials that are just in Spanish and include only the Spanish language line, that's available for you right there. So I want to make sure everybody knows about that.
Yeah, you see the numbers. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we did get a question actually on the chat box, Misty, and it says, how do I get a Braille questionnaire for my neighbor? So, and then feel free to jump in as well, Misty, but you can actually go when you go onto our 2020 Census.gov page, you can actually click on the search box and type in language guides. And you'll be able, once you hit the language guides, our page will pop up. It will have all of the different language guides available. It'll include the 59 non-English languages, and then it'll also have a PDF in large print and as well as Braille that's available. And then I know that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can call the local ACO office to request a Braille questionnaire. Is that correct?
See, I got to ask the same question about the large print questionnaire, and I couldn't find any information on it, so I sent that up. So I'm not 100% sure how they would go about getting a questionnaire in Braille or large print myself. So that will be a question that I will, again, ask, and I'll get an answer so somebody else can answer it in the next day's training.
Perfect. Yeah, we will make sure to do that. And for any questions that arise, please make sure you can reach out to your local ACO or your local partnership specialist so they can move these questions up, and we can make sure we get you the information, the most accurate information, most up-to-date information. So please make sure you use that. And then I know that, so for any time you call our language lines, I know, Missy, you talked a little bit about this, that right now they are experiencing, high call volume. But I think it's important and really a great point to touch on that when you call the toll-free phone number, you are talking to a live person. So you're not going to be able to, you're not going to talk to an automated system. You're actually going to be able to talk to a live customer service representative who can actually help you in completion of 2020 census. So I think that's just really great to be able to point that to everybody. And then the callers for English and Spanish, like it's mentioned on there, have language lines that will be routed through the system, but then they'll be transferred to a customer service representative.
Yeah, everybody will be able to talk to a customer service representative in their language. that is great, and it helps make people feel more comfortable as well when they're responding.
Yeah, definitely. A couple of our partners who did mention that, they did have a couple of disabilities. For the TDD, they did say that, just going online was really helpful. So we want to make sure people know that as well, that, if we do have that telephone display device line available, but, if anybody else, has any other disability, we have this line as well, but we also have the online self-response page as well, where people can go ahead and use that as well. So you're not limited to one or the other. You have a range of options on how you can self-respond.
Right, and I got a question too. I have to answer all the questions? I'm transgender and I don't identify as male or female. You answer.
Great.
Oh, sorry?
Yeah, great question. Great question. I would definitely take that on, but a great question to ask.
You identify how you self-respond how you identify. If you identify as male, you hit male. If you identify as female, you hit female. It's how you identify. You choose your answer, and that's just how it goes. The more questions that you don't respond to, the higher likelihood that a census taker might come knocking on your door to ask you some questions about the ones that you've not answered, but you respond how you identify for the sex and question.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, great question there in the chat box. And then in addition, for everybody who wants a little bit more information on the specific questions, on day 2, when we go through the paper questionnaire and the internet self-response, we actually go through all of the reasonings on why we ask these questions. So please, keep that in mind, that day 2 will go through why we ask, what the questions are, and how that affects our daily life and how it creates statistics for us. So we do go into the sex versus gender, as well as ethnicity versus race.
Yeah.
Okay, as we move on, we wanted to make sure we gave you a little bit of information on the census response rate. I know you're going to go through the response rate map as well as ROAM in other of your trainings, but I wanted to make sure you guys knew about the downloadable kit, since we're covering some of our marketing information, in this training. They were able to, the Bureau was able to release a downloadable kit to help community leaders plan response rate challenges. And all of that is available on our 2020 census website. You can download it. I believe it's a PDF. I've been able to send it to a couple of partners, but it also comes with a couple of banners. Have you been able to see that, Misty?
No, my computer has some issues with PDF. Sometimes it freezes up, and I haven't been able to get that one downloaded. But it is a great tool, and there are a lot of communities. I know there's a few cities in Idaho that have challenged each other for their response rates. So it's a fun competition amongst cities, counties, or whatever you have you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's called the Response Rate Challenge Toolkit, and it includes ideas, resources about how you can create the challenge and kind of do a competition, versus a range of things you can do: counties versus counties, cities versus other cities, CCCs versus other CCCs. So it really gives you a step-by-step platform and guideline. It does give you, step 1, step 2, and I believe there's about 9 steps in total, but it really gives you an entire, how-to of how to really do these challenge rates. It gives you sample scenarios. It tells you a little bit of information on how you can plan these. It gives you inspiration and examples. It also gives you a little bit more on how to prep for this. Whether that be, doing community outreach if you really want to focus on a local level, or if you really want to, shoot for the moon and do, national outreach, and then how you can celebrate. I don't think we have to tell anybody how they can celebrate, but, in case you're lost, we do give you a couple ideas on that. And then how to execute it based on, using social media, especially right now when everything is so social, everything is very driven by social media due to social distancing. but we do give you a little bit of information on social media, some of the downloadable assets, and all the banners that are available to you. So it's really an in-depth, how-to that's available for everybody. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, or maybe add that to your, they have web badges available also. So maybe you want to share that on your social media. Please make sure you check that out on our census website.
Yeah, the self-response rate map I use that every day. Whenever I send out pitches and stuff, and it's just insane that you can actually see how many households have responded in a certain county, and you get to see the percentages and who's leading the pack and the nation of has top billing at number one, and it changes. So it's just fun to kind of watch.
It really is. It's kind of to me. It reminds me of election night. When everybody's standing and watching the news, and everybody's looking at the live results of who made it in and who made it out and where people are in their standings. So it definitely has that feel to it. But it's even more exciting because you get to see, for all of our community members and stakeholders who have been doing so much work and outreach in their local communities, they really get to see how, what their efforts and the fruits of their efforts look like when they get to see how good their community's response rate is. So I think it's just a great tool, and really makes it fun and interactive for us to be able to engage with the public.
Okay, I got a question. You said that the mailers have already been sent out, but me nor my neighbors have received anything. When will P.O. Box receive their info? Well, P.O. boxes, if they're underneath the update leave operation, that operation right now is on hold. Further guidance of what's going to be going on right now, I don't know what is going to be going on. I don't know what the dates are. I think right now it was stated as April 15th. That might be changing. So once the operation of update leave gets back up and running, you will have a census taker come out to your house, and they will leave the questionnaire, the paper questionnaire, and they will also leave your option to go online for your self-response. So you'll still have all three. Ways to respond. That one, you'll have the paper questionnaire, but you can still call in. Our update leave operation is postponed. As soon as it's back up and running, you'll have somebody come to your house and drop off the questionnaire.
Yeah, and we actually sent out you can actually find all of that information in our 2020 Census.gov website. Under press releases, you can see the local information of where our director gave a quick overview on the new timelines. It also gave a quick overview on when we will, retake and resume in-field activities. It did cover update leave in that press release as well. So please make sure you go online and learn a little bit about that. But yeah, correct. As Misty said, this information it's every day it changes. So for the most up-to-date information, please make sure you're checking the 2020 Census.gov website. It does have a special section at the bottom under COVID-19 updates. So you can actually sign up for those, and it'll give you an update directly to your email address. So I think that's a good tip for everybody listening. If you want to make sure you're up to date, please sign up to all of our Census Bureau updates. You'll get the updates directly to your inbox, and you'll always be in the know.
Yeah, I was just going to stress that. If you really want to know what's going on and when it comes out, sign up for those updates, because as soon as it hits, you get the email letting you know that there's something new to check out. And it's not just operational info. There's a lot of fun info in there as well, that, what the Census Bureau is up to, just different, because the Census Bureau does so much. It's not just the 2020 census. So you'll get some emails of like, well, what's going on with their economic section, like when they're releasing some data. And I didn't think I was a data geek until I started getting those emails. So, yeah, I find them very enjoyable and interesting and mind-blowing as to how much stuff the Census Bureau does. And how everything that the nation does is kind of relate based on Census Bureau data.
Absolutely, Misty. I think the last update that we got was something regarding, it was, I think, Women's Empowerment Month or Women's Month, and it gave us even a little blurb about, women's, quick facts about Women's Month. So, yeah, it gives you so much.
Right.
Those updates are really useful. It gives you a snapshot of, how the country's doing, a quick information on other surveys, and then obviously the operational updates as well that are changing day to day. So it's really all inclusive. So I would definitely say a good helpful tip and a good thing to do just to make sure you're up to date is go ahead and sign up for that. Okay, as we move on, do you want to give us a little bit of information on how we can verify census staff? I think this is one of the most popular questions that we get all the time. A little bit later on in this training, we'll kind of go over some of the, things to look out for, such as frauds and scams that we can avoid. But I think this goes really, this is a good introduction on how people can verify census staff.
Well, the first part is if they need to have their badge with the Department of Commerce watermark on it, and their picture and the expiration date. They'll be carrying a bag with Census Bureau. They'll also have a device that should have the Census Bureau logo on it. So that visually you can see, okay, well, they have those things. But if you still want to double check, we have a Census Bureau staff search website. You can find that online. Or you can call the Los Angeles Regional Census Center, and you can reach them at 213-314-6500 if you want to make sure that this person who is at your door is employed by the Census Bureau. So there's a couple different ways that you can look them up by their last name, their first name, organization would be Census Bureau, and then you can try looking that up. I know for me, I've only been able to find partnership staff in there, so that's partnership specialists. The recruiting assistants, I have not had luck in finding many recruiting assistants names in this search. But then again, you go to the phone number and call, and then they can look it up and can tell you who should be there at your door.
Absolutely, yeah. Good thing you mentioned that, yeah. So when you go online to do that Census Bureau staff search, at the bottom of it there is, some fine print, and it does give you kind of a little disclaimer saying that I think the CRRs and the recruiters and any other, I think enumerators fall into this as well. You actually can't look them up on this staff search, but you can look other Census Bureau staff, like you mentioned, like partnership. But as you mentioned, I think the best rule of thumb would just be if you have any questions, just call our LA Regional Census Center. And it oversees the entire region, not just Washington, but you can reach them at that phone number there. And then as we go on to the next slide, I think a good point is this one goes into avoiding frauds and scams. I think both of these slides, just go really well hand in hand. People really want to know how they can verify census staff, and we do a really good job. I think, Misty and her team with the media specialists contact a lot of our local law enforcement. They contact a lot of our media to make sure that people know what to look out for, so it's out in the public eye. But here's a little bit kind of rule of thumb. So, anytime you want to avoid frauds and scams, it goes to some of the things that, so Census Bureau will not send you any unsolicited emails to request your participation. We will also never ask you for your Social Security number, any money or donations, anything on behalf of a political party, or anything with bank or credit card account numbers. So I think that's really important that, that everybody's aware of that. There's so many things nowadays, with emails that on websites that look so real, but they are completely fake. And we want to make sure everybody knows that, our big thing is to make sure your information is safe. We keep it confidential. And, we do our best to go ahead and make sure that all your information is entrusted and encrypted. So please make sure you're on the lookout for all of these. That's why when we pulled up the 2020 census questionnaire page, make sure that you're on the .gov and make sure that the page has that locked icon because that shows that it's encrypted. Misty, can you give us a little bit more information on what people can do if they think that, they ran into a scam or a fraud?
Well, again, if we will never ask you those things that Lisette went over: bank account, political party, money, donation, Social Security number. If you're getting some odd questions, you can feel free to call 800-923-8282 to speak with the local Census Bureau representative. You can also, if it seems like it's a rumor, you're hearing something on social media, just odd things that just don't sound right to you, you can also email rumors@Census.gov, and you can just be like, look, I'm hearing this, and we have a trust and safety team that actually looks into all these reported rumors, scam, fraud, and they do their due diligence of trying to quash it before it gets big. They go through and we'll get responses. I know I have emailed them a couple of things, and within a day we've gotten a response back from headquarters that says, okay, this is what's going on, and put this, give this information out to the media that these scams are going on in your area so they can be alerted to it. Because, sometimes you'll just hear a couple people saying it, and you don't know how big the issue is. So then once headquarters gives us that information, I send it out to the media, and the media has been great about alerting their listeners, viewers, readers about possible fraud, scams that are going on, that are people trying to, claim the 2020 census name. And so please call, email the rumors, email to let them know.
Yeah, I think that's there's so many, like you said, there's so many rumors out there. I know one that I was hearing recently was that you wouldn't get your stimulus check unless you completed the 2020 census. So I know we put out a statement on that as well that can be found on our 2020 Census.gov. But that's one. Another one was like, a rumor that the 2020 census is asking about citizenship status, which is incorrect. The 2020 census does not ask whether you or anyone in your home is a U.S. citizen. So I think it's really important that people know that we have, these ways to combat rumors, as well as, our trust and safety team. And we really rely on, the public as well as our team to do their best to help us fight all of these rumors and misinformation and fraudulent information that you hear or read or spot online, to make sure that only the best information and the right information is out there about the 2020 census.
Right. And that also goes with, stick to what you know. Don't, talk about things that you don't know. If somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer, you know what? I'm going to find that out. Don't just speculate either, because that just helps spread the disinformation. Absolutely. And I think, for everybody on this training, you might not know a lot of information, or things are changing every day, and the information might be correct, but you might have not gotten that information yet. So just make sure that, if you don't know anything, please make sure you just say, I'd be more than happy to look into that. You always want to make sure you're on the safe side, and don't speak badly. I mean, the last thing we want is to make sure that you gave wrong information as a Census Bureau employee, because you were guessing. Right. And we are getting a couple of questions on media, and we are about to get to that. So it's a good segue. Misty, do you want to go ahead and give us a little bit of information of, if a CRR or Census Bureau employee can speak to the media, and what are some of the guidance around that, and some good tips that they should follow? Okay, let's go through the slide, and then I'll get to that. So only Census Bureau's social media team may create or maintain official Census Bureau social media sites or act on social media sites in an official capacity. It's the Department of Commerce has a policy related to social media use in an unofficial personal capacity by employees. So employees should be mindful of blurring their personal and professional life when using social media technologies. You don't want to post something like you're the official voice for the Census Bureau. So when you're posting to a personal social media account, you may use your title when it's self-evident you are not posting in an official capacity. So it is recommended that you include a disclaimer in your social media bio, such as, my social media communication reflect only my personal views and do not necessarily represent the views of any federal agency or U.S. government. And when you are posting to a personal social media account, do not disclose any information obtained on the job that is not already publicly available, please. Employees should be mindful that any information posted on their social media sites, even when on-site privacy controls are used, could become public. So this is saying you might put stuff on your social media page and you're trying to get people to respond to the census. Just make sure you have that disclaimer, because then it might blur the lines that headquarters has this other person that's speaking on behalf of the Census Bureau, and that is not the case. All social media is handled by headquarters. I get to post on Nextdoor because they have allowed certain people in the regions to post to Nextdoor, and we have a very stringent guideline that we follow and messaging timeline that we follow. We can't just post whatever we want. So the social media aspect is, I would just, if you don't know, don't post anything. If you have something from the Census Bureau, like say you sign up for their email, like you follow them on Facebook or whatever, that you can post back up on your site and that won't blur any lines because it's coming right from the Census Bureau. There's no blurring of the lines. That's what I do. I don't even post stuff myself. I'll just repost whatever the Census Bureau has put up, and it's underneath the Census Bureau logo. I'm clear of any possible wrongdoing. So that's what I would suggest for you. As in speaking to media, now we had some issues. RAs were not allowed to speak to media, but then when we had these events, like we had the Gig of the Decade event in October, and then we had another event at the end of February, when we're publicizing an event that is on that big of a scale, then they were allowed to speak to the media, but that did not come across clear. So you're always going to need to act like you're on the record whenever you're talking to anybody, because reporters do not have to identify themselves. They can come up to you, they can ask you some questions, and then they can go back and write their story. So if you're not talking to somebody like you're in that professional capacity that you are in, if you're giving your opinion, your speculations, it might show up in a newspaper, and you don't want that. So you stick to the information that you know that you can give out. If somebody comes up with some odd questions, you can be like, you know what, I don't know that information, and saying I don't have that information is perfectly okay. Then you go and forward that to the partnership specialist who might be in the area, or you forward it up. If it sounds like it's media, if somebody says that they're media, then contact that partnership specialist there or the media specialist in your area.
Yeah, I think a good tip would be for, if you want to make sure if you're caught unprepared, make sure you do a little bit of homework before. You know who your local partnership specialist is. You know who your local media specialist is. That way, if you're out at any event and you do get questions on media, or someone wants to take, a statement on you or ask you for some kind of public presentation, I know a couple of RAs said, they had that information on hand and was able to quickly share that information to media, and then it's out of your hands. And you connected them to the right person, so you were able to make that bridge and that connection, to that person to make sure that they got the most up-to-date information from the correct media team. Misty and her team are amazing. They are more than happy to help you anytime with any of these questions and to answer and field all of those media requests.
Yeah, and make sure you can find out from your ACO who your local media specialist is.
Yeah, and I think on a lot of questions I get, now that you're talking about, how media, if someone from the media doesn't really have to disclose, that who they are. I think that's a good little segue on a couple of tips on just professionalism and dress code. We want to make sure that, anytime that you are out in public, you are representing the Census Bureau, regardless of what your capacity is. You're a Census Bureau employee, and now you are speaking on behalf of the Census Bureau. So as Misty said, please make sure that whatever your personal opinions are, you keep those to yourself when you're in your official capacity. I think a good rule of thumb is, would you say this, to our director at the Census Bureau? If you're I always kind of just assume that, everybody, anytime I go out in public, the New York Post or the LA Times or any of these media sites are always watching to make sure that, if I don't know, I say I don't know. So please make sure you're not guessing. Any other tips that you can think of, Misty?
If a member of the media does come up to you and say it's an event that maybe, I don't know how this is going to go with the MQAs. I don't know if we're going to publicize events yet. So if we are going to be publicizing events, then that might be, you'll get different guidance as to, yes, you can speak to a reporter, make sure you take down their name, and then, forward it on to your media specialist, and then you always give your media specialist contact info to the reporter as well. That, I'm not exactly sure what's going on. We'll get more guidance as we're getting closer. So if a reporter comes up to you, please make sure, don't hold your hands up and say, I can't answer your questions. We have had people do that. And it's off-putting to the reporter, and they're just trying to do their job. That's their job. We're trying to do our job, and we really have to work with reporters because they're a huge free section of getting the 2020 census coverage. It's called earned media. Basically, I beg sometimes for it. So please just say hi, thank you for coming, take their name, and say, this is my media specialist. You can contact them for questions that you have concerning this event. And then also contact your media specialist or also the local partnership specialist in case you can't get a hold of somebody. That way somebody knows a reporter was in the area. So then we can be on a lookout for the story that they're going to be putting out about the event. So sometimes, if you throw your hands up and say, I can't talk to you, and that's it, it leaves a bad taste in their mouth, and their story might not be very positive for us. So if you just say, hi, thank you for coming, you know what, I don't know that information, here's my media specialist, they'll be more than happy to help you out, then we're clear. And the reporter leaves happy, we're good, everything's good.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's a good tip. Just always be cordial, be nice to everybody, and then always connect them with a media specialist or their partnership specialist. As we go on to the next slide, that way you can continue in giving us a little bit more information on media.
My computer's down again.
Okay, well, no problem. So I will, let me go ahead and read this off until you get up and running again. I know we know how technology is. I think right now, especially right now, since everybody is online, I think a lot of these programs are a little strange. But the second slide goes into, if the Census Bureau may not have advance awareness that a reporter or journalist is planning to attend an MQA, kind of as Misty already said, for their media outlet, they sometimes don't identify themselves. So when interacting with any other member of the public, please assume that everything you say is on the record, as she mentioned, and really avoid speculating or commenting on things about which you are unsure of or not aware. If a person identifying themselves as a member of the news gathering media requests comments or an interview, please refer them to the on-site partnership specialist or the media specialist. Otherwise, please direct them, to the media specialist team or the PIO office, which is our public information office. And then we did include their email address there for you, as well as their phone number, that 763-3030. So that's the main contact, both email and phone number for our Public Information Office, which is based out of headquarters. In general, for media interviews, they all must be pre-approved by headquarters, and your partnership specialist or media specialist will be able to initiate this process. So, rule of thumb, if you don't know, please don't guess. Always direct them or connect them to a media or partnership specialist. And then if you're ever on the fence of anything, always just ask. Don't be afraid to ask your ACO or to ask your media or partnership specialist. If you're unsure of anything, they are more than happy to help you. We're all a team, and we want to make sure we support you every step of the way. So if you're ever unsure, please make sure you just reach out and ask for help.
Right. Somebody's always there to help you out. I mean, I field questions from RAs sometimes when they've had questions. For me, with the Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada team, I don't care what time you call. You send an email, I'll look at it, and I'll email you back. I mean, don't ever be afraid to reach out and ask the question. And I know some people are. It's, you don't want to appear to, maybe not know what you're talking about. Well, that's fine. It's okay. Ask me a question. I ask lots of questions. I'm sure my boss is kind of sick of me sometimes, but I want to make sure I'm putting out accurate information and I'm not confusing anybody. And that's what we have to do. There's already enough confusion with outside forces trying to, cloudy the waters with whatever they're trying to put out, calling stuff census, and when we have our census going on, and it confuses people. So please ask questions if you're not sure.
Absolutely. And I think for the last point, it says, remember that cameras are now ubiquitous. Everybody has a phone. Everybody has a mobile device. So, you could be recorded anytime. So please make sure you're always conducting yourself in a manner that reflects positive on the Census Bureau. We talked a little bit about this. Just, always be professional. Always make sure you're, in the correct dress code, try to avoid things that are political or wearing things, that are a political statement. Could you give us a little bit more information and tips on that, Misty?
I would just dress nice for the event. Wear some nicer pants. I mean, I got nice pants at Costco for not even $10. They look dressy, and I wear them with a nice top in my capacity. I do believe CRRs will be getting a T-shirt, some type of shirt, a polo or a T-shirt. Make sure you have that on when you're at your event, and just dress like business casual, something that you would go to church and maybe church might be too formal, but just look presentable. No cut off jeans, no ripped jeans. Just dress nice, because you are serving as the face of the 2020 census while you're out at these events. People are going to associate you with the census. If you're not putting off a professional vibe, they might not get a professional vibe from the census. So you really are the face of the census when you're out in public. So just dress respectable, decent, no loud colors. Like if you were going to an interview, no suit, but the business casual interview, nice slacks, maybe a nice skirt if it goes with your top. Just remember just to look respectable, because, again, you are the face of the census when you are out in public.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think depending on, what their official, what the official uniform is, I think they said that it'll be like a teal polo shirt, and in your pant or some kind of bottom. But if you're ever unsure, depending on where you're at, if you're at, in more of a rural area, you kind of have to also dress like the community. So just, use good judgment. Right. And if you have any questions, always ask. You have a range of team members here who are always available to help you. So if you're ever unsure, just make sure you ask.
Yes. Again, ask questions.
Perfect. And let's go on to the next slide. We're going to go into a little bit more of all of our range of marketing materials, our outreach materials, everything that we really have out there on our 2020 census website to make sure that we can support you in self-response and how we're supporting our partners, and all the range of outreach materials and marketing materials that we have available. Misty, do you want to go into this a little bit?
So there's a lot of different materials on the site, like Lynette was saying. I use some of these just to respond to if I get a media request, a question or whatever. Sometimes you just look and they just have the information in quick little snippets that are easy to remember, and you read through those. Some of them are very useful. Like I still go on here and I'll use, okay, you know what? That answers my question. It's clear, concise, and packaged neatly, and it will get the job done. So you just go on the site. There's so many different materials. There's materials in different languages. I can't even keep track of all the stuff that keeps coming out. They have materials in a lot of the different languages. So if you know that you're going to an area that has Spanish, that they're speaking Spanish, there's materials in Spanish that you can go print out and have with you. I think there's some materials in, I don't even remember how many languages for sure. I know I've seen, you just have to kind of go look and peruse. You can even ask a partnership specialist. Sometimes they know if you're looking for something in particular. And they'll know if it's there. But it's just go through it, look through. There's so much useful stuff on there. Again, the 2020 census site, the Census Bureau has, again, went above and beyond with all the materials that they have produced for the census. They're still producing materials. So you go on there like maybe once a week and just check it out. See if there's something that, a partner's looking for something, you haven't seen it. You'll eventually see it if it's not already there. And that's the thing. It's usually already there, what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I go on this every day, just kind of like you said, and we included the link to it so you can kind of on your own or, after this training, please make sure you click on this link. And it's just on our 2020 census website. You can go to partners and then outreach materials. It's over 7 pages of all of our outreach materials and marketing materials. And it does have a filter up at the top, so you can filter materials by language. And some of the languages that it does include, I was able to pull it up, so it has English, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, simplified and Mandarin. Then it has Chinese traditional and Cantonese, French, Haitian Creole, Japanese, Korean, Polish, Russian, Portuguese, Spanish, Tagalog, Vietnamese. So it's a range of languages, and then you can also filter by type. So say you want like a brochure or a poster or a half pager, something for social media, maybe a video. You can actually filter all of that information. So it's really, really helpful. And then it goes even further, and you can filter down by your audience. So it has information, for American Indian and Alaska Native audience. It has information for maybe our educators and our schools. It has information on confidentiality and privacy, on Hispanic audiences, on new prospective partners, maybe you want information on recruitment or, for the general public. So you can really get things tailored down on that filter option. So I want to make sure you guys get a chance to go through our website and, play with it, explore, see what's out there. There's so much information available that you guys can use. And then your local partnership specialist gets a lot of these shipped to them. So, if you're ever unsure, just check in with your partnership specialist or reach out to your local partnership specialist if you have any questions.
Good advice. Partnership specialist. They'll be able to help you out.
Yeah, there's honestly so many, there's so many good things, as I mentioned, outside of that filter material. Then it has on the other side, it has, information for governmental resources. It also has information for your complete count committees. A lot of this goes into more of the partnership side of job duties and their roles. But, in case you want to go ahead and make sure this information, you can definitely check all of this out as information on tribal resources, on national partnership. It has all the PSA's toolkit. So not so much telling you to go ahead and start sending these out to people. Like I said, then we go into a little bit more about the partnership specialist role and the media specialist. But just in case you want to go ahead and make sure, you educate yourself and you learn as much as you can definitely go on there and check all the information that's available on our website.
Right, and I think it's going to be helpful as well since, the MQAs are going to be out in areas of low response. It's good to know your audience. One area of low response is not going to be the same as the other. This one might be Spanish-speaking. The other one just might be lower income or a whole bunch of children under 5. So it's good to know your audience that you're going to be dealing with so you can have the information that's pertinent to them. Because I'm telling you, when one group doesn't care about children under 5 if they don't have children, they don't care about the education part, funding for schools, that's not their mindset because they don't have children. They don't have children in school. They're worried. They can maybe commute an hour. They're more worried about the roads and the bridges. So it's good to know who you're speaking to and what is important to them, what matters to them, so you can drive. The census should matter to everybody, but people don't see it that way. So if you know what their niche is, like, okay, there's a whole bunch of children here, public schools are probably going to be important to this community. Then you can go look at the outreach material for children under 5 and how it will help with lunches, school programs, funding for the schools, funding for new schools. That's important. So the outreach material is good because it's targeted to the different concerns, the 0 under 5, rural life. So it helps kind of give you a mindset of how this area might think, what would be important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in addition to this, I think, due to all the social distancing, the Census Bureau has really done a good job as well of providing a whole bunch of materials to spread the word through social media channels. So you can also go on our website and go to Spread the Word. So it has a whole bunch of challenges that you can also share, that are available. Has the pledge to complete the 2020 census, and it has both the video as well as a couple of good icons of how you can inspire others. As we already kind of went through our media guidance, you can always share things when you're following the Census Bureau website. So if you follow the Census Bureau on like Instagram or Facebook, you can always share that information on your social media platforms. It has information of how they're challenging, their community to complete the census, and it provides you a range of icons. You can actually download these challenge images, or you can create a custom image of your own to share with your friends on social media. So it actually has that information as well. And then it also has a couple of interesting facts that are already created, such as the 2020 census determines how many congressional representatives each state gets. And it has a blurb on census facts. It also has, ready to share icons that has, your kids count, your roommates count, newborns count, and it has an image to go along with it as well. So make sure you just know some of these things that are out there. You can also subscribe to all of our updates, as we mentioned earlier, to stay up to date with all of our information. Anything else you want to share, Ms., before we move on to the next?
I would just, go online, see what the site has. It has so much information. You will learn something new, that's for sure. I know I learn something new almost every time I go on it. It might just be one little fact, too, and be like, oh, I did not know that. So just go online and familiarize yourself with what we have up there.
Absolutely. This is another one, as you mentioned that, I was like, okay, I remember grabbing this one that kind of gives you a roadmap. So that way you know kind of what to expect. And I know a lot of these have been pushed out, due to COVID-19, but it kind of just gives you something of what to expect, what we started doing since December of 2019, and it gives you a good roadmap of, things that our partners are doing to guide us between now and July of 2020 on sharing self-response and to continue to inform our audience about the importance of responding to the census. And then we can definitely take any questions, but I think that's anything else you want to add before we start taking questions?
No, just again, if a reporter comes up to you, say, hi, thank you for coming. Here's my media specialist information, or there's the partnership specialist if you're very busy and there's a partnership specialist there. Get them the media specialist information some way, somehow. Again, be polite. Don't run in fear. Don't throw your hands up and be like, I can't talk to you, and just turn around and walk away. Just, be friendly, be nice, get them the information, and then you're done with it. Dress professionally. Don't speak about stuff that you don't know about. It's okay to ask media specialists, partnership specialists, ACO people questions if you don't know. So just don't feel like you're out here alone.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions that we received is, what are some best practices to keep partnership and media specialist numbers? So they're sharing just, like we mentioned earlier, always be prepared, whether you're CRR, RA, or, please make sure that, just to be prepared, always have those, your partnership and media specialist numbers on hand. That way you can give those out if needed. We did get a question saying, are all the questions on the questionnaire mandatory?
Highly encouraged to answer all of them. There's, 9 questions. It gives information just of the people that live, work in the community, and it's information that the Census Bureau needs to help distribute the money out to the communities.
Definitely. And so there are questions that you can skip, but we want to make sure we encourage everybody to complete complete the questionnaire as much as you can to the best of your abilities. We know people will have, some concerns on confidentiality, so please make sure that you read up on the confidentiality flyers about Title 13, on how we make sure, we encrypt their information and, it's safe, it's confidential, it's easy. So please make sure you follow up on that as well. We did get another question as well. It says, do I work for the partnership specialist or the recruiting manager? This is a great question. I think, as we're developing this, but we're going to be working with both. Mostly, the ACO is going to be obviously where you're going to ask all of your questions. So please make sure you reach out first to all of your recruiting managers and everybody there at the ACO. But you will be working with a partnership specialist, but most likely it'll be your partnership specialist working with your recruiting manager. But you might have a partnership specialist that does reach out to you, or you reach out to them to ask a specific question. So you're going to be working with both, but your direct manager will be your recruiting manager. Another question that says, if I don't complete all the questions, does that mean someone will come to my house for a follow-up? So we do ask on the questionnaire your phone number. So that is why we ask for a phone number. So if there is something that really stands out or that flags your questionnaire, we do try to call you first. We do our non-response follow-up for people who did not respond to the census at all. So we didn't get, we didn't get a questionnaire from you at all. That's when that triggers our non-response follow-up. So that's when our enumerators will be doing the door-to-door knocking. And then, Misty, let's see, I have a question for you. It says, I have a friend who only responds to the census when a live person comes to their house. With COVID-19, when will those people be going out into the public?
That operation is postponed for now. So sign up for the email updates, and you'll find out the most current COVID-19 2020 census operation updates. But non-response follow-up is when they will be going out if they didn't respond at all, and that will be sometime in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did put out a statement on that as well, as I mentioned. So when you go to our 2020 Census.gov page, at the bottom you can go to News and Events. And then at the bottom, you can go to Monitoring COVID-19, and then you'll see a link that says See Operational Adjustments. And then it will give you actually a good little summary of all the operational adjustments that we made due to this pandemic, how we're working with all local levels of government to make sure that we protect the health and safety of both our employees and the American public. And then it gives you the status of all the current operations. So, for example, as Misty said, right now, most of the infield operations are suspended, but it does give you kind of that information on each operation, whether that be early non-response follow-up or non-response follow-up. So as of right now, it still says delayed, and then the adjusted revised schedule says between May 28th and August 14th. But always sign up for messages in our updates so you can get the most up-to-date information. Okay, I do have another question from a CRR. It says, is it okay for me to help my friends and family take the census right now while we are all at home?
I would say yes, and friends and family members can help you. You can't tell them how to answer, but if they have a question, you can help them out. Am I correct with that?
Yes, I mean, I would say definitely make sure you can help people with their permission. I think with everything, the caveat is make sure you have, your mom's permission to fill out her census. You can't just fill out their census for them. Anytime we want to make sure we tell people, you don't. It's not great to you can't just fill it out for them, even if you have the best of intentions. Or it's your sister or a family member, make sure that if you are helping somebody, you get the permission to do so. This is everybody's personal information, their personal identifiable information. So the big thing is you can help them if they give you their permission. And we another big thing, and we'll go through this a little bit more through our internet self-response and paper questionnaire. Rule of thumb is, you want to make sure that people feel empowered to self-respond. You don't want to tell them what to fill out. Like, for example, on the gender, the sex question or the race and ethnicity question. We want to make sure people self-identify and feel empowered to fill them out, to however they'd like to respond. We never want to tell people, you should click this button or you should do this one. We can guide them, read off the questions to them. Maybe, if they're hard of sight, they can't really see that well or they're not comfortable on the computer. But, please don't tell them what they should fill out. Make sure that everybody feels empowered to self-respond on their own.
Right, and there's also on the 2020 census site, they have the questions that we're asking and why we ask them. And it just breaks it down to why we're asking this question, because that might be one thing. Well, why are they asking this question, what this question means, especially about the race and ethnicity. It is broken down per question, the question that we ask and why we ask, and it gives you examples. So you can just go through there too. Like me, I had a look at that because I know this is the first time that I could put down my race and ethnicity because I'm Irish American. So when I was looking through that, I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty interesting and cool. I didn't know that before. So if you go to that site, that helps give you a lot of background as to why the questions are asked and everything, and it might actually help answer some of the questions that your friends and family members have.
Yeah, exactly. Another question we're getting is, what if my answers to the census change? What do? I just moved or just had a baby, for example. So we do ask for you to answer these questions based on where you're at on April 1st. So, for example, let's say you just moved and you haven't responded to the census yet. We actually have a range of materials. So we have a residency criteria. We have an extended version that I think goes into like 6 or 8 pages, and then we have one that I think is just a 1 or 2 pager that gives you the highlights of all of these, a lot of these cases. So please make sure that, if you're aware of these and look at these. It's the residency criteria, and you can reach out to your ACO for a copy of them, or to your local partnership specialist if you can't find it online. But it really goes into all of these situational questions, like, oh, what if I'm on military orders? What if I'm studying abroad? Mm-hmm. What about college students? So it really into these specific questions and situations on where people might be living at certain points. So please make sure you check out the residency criteria.
And then the April 1st date, if you had a baby before April 1st or on April 1st, and count it. If it's after April 1st, April 1st is the date, so we can help kind of, it's not all over the place. So if you had a baby after April 1st, that baby will be counted in 2030. Sorry about that.
Yes, and then we did get another question that says, what is update leave? So we do have a range of operations. Update leave is one of them. And update leave is usually when we go and a physical person goes and leaves the questionnaire at your home and then updates that address. So right now that operation is currently suspended because it is part of our update our in-field operations. So usually the census takers will drop off the invitations at the front doors, and I think it's about 5 million households, and then these households can respond online. So they aren't limited to not responding, even though that in-field operation is suspended. So even without the invitation, all they have to do is go on our My 2020 Census, on the self-response portal, and all they would have to do is just provide their address. So even if you didn't get a response, an invitation or a letter yet because you fall under these operations, please feel empowered to go online and self-respond on the internet portal or by calling the toll-free phone number as well.
Yes. And that also pertains to areas that for some reason might not fall underneath update leave, but they have P.O. boxes. They can still, and they don't get the mail service to their house, they can still respond through the online option and telephone option. And then if they still haven't responded either way, then during our non-response follow-up, those households will be visited by a census taker if they have not self-responded. So everybody will still get an option to be counted one way or another.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's one of the questions we get a lot, for people who are living in a rural county or community where, P.O. boxes and rural routes are the main way they get their mail. Their response might be really low because they can see, how their county is doing or how their city is doing. So you can always, help us get the word out by telling your neighbors, telling your friends that they can respond now. They can go online. They can call the toll-free phone number. I know a lot of our partners, throughout, a lot of these states are sending out some postcards. Cities are sending out, reminders to their residents. Local officials are posting things online. So I think any way that you can help promote self-respond by just letting people know that the census is important and the 3 ways that they can respond will always help us with increasing our internet self-response, with increasing our response rate overall. We do have another question, Misty, and it says, my dad travels around the U.S. in his RV. He uses my mailing address. Can I count him at my house?
Oh, I'm fuzzy on this one. Let me see. Is it where he's living at on April 1st?
Correct. So for anybody who's, this is one of the ones that I also say, please make sure you check your residency criteria. I literally go to that all the time. Anytime I get a question, I check the residency criteria to make sure, we're giving the correct information. So always have that handy. It's available online. But yes, some people, it's based on where people are living most of the time. But on the questionnaire, it does say, where are you living on April 1st, 2020? But keep in mind that, if he's not living with you but just uses your mailing address, he usually falls under one of our other operations if he's at an RV park. But he can also respond to that. He can feel empowered to respond to that, on his own as well. So if you have any questions on that, please make sure you check the residency criteria for more information as well. My neighbor and her husband turned in their census a few weeks ago, and then on March 28th, they received a foster baby born March 26th. How do they count for the baby?
On the site, there is a way to adjust your census response. My computer is still frozen. I want to say there is a link when you go on there. It says to adjust your census response. I believe there is a link for that. Is that correct?
I believe so. I don't have that information in front of me, but I do know that, if any time that you want to adjust it, you can call back, call our toll-free phone number and let them know that you want to adjust it. We also have our post-enumeration that happens, after the main bulk of the self-response, where we kind of go through all of this to make sure that if there was any duplicates, we can also figure that out. So we do have ways to making sure that, we do some kind of quality control. So I would say if anybody is, on the fence, definitely push them to self-respond. It's a lot easier based on what we've gotten from feedback from the operations side. It's a lot easier to get rid of duplicates than completely missing someone. So if someone's kind of on the fence, I always say, just go online and make sure you self-respond if you're not sure if someone has responded. And, if you want to make sure you make a change, call the toll-free phone number.
That's good advice. I forgot about the phone number. Yes.
Yes.
They'll help you out and direct you where you need to go.
Yes. So it says, for example, these are a couple scenarios maybe from a CRR that they might run into. So my census iPad isn't working right now. Can I use my personal device to get people to take the census? If not, what other options do I have? From my knowledge, you're not allowed to use your personal device. You should be using your census iPad, but we know that technology, doesn't always work. So I would say you can help people on their personal device if they have one. Say you're helping me out and we're at a park and, some community event. I would definitely, say, oh, my iPad isn't working. Well, take out your cell phone and I can walk you through, the questionnaire and you can help them that way. I would avoid using your personal device because you are working. So please empower the person you're helping to use their devices or to go ahead and call the toll-free phone number.
Yeah, never use your personal device because people are putting PII into the browser. So just keep your, self-preservation. Do not use your own personal device. Use theirs. Let them bring up the website, and then you can go through and read the question for them if they're having issues that way. But do not use your own device.
Definitely. And we can go through a couple of other scenarios, but I would say, a couple key takeaways from this training is definitely go on the Census website, go ahead and explore all of the options that are out on there, familiarize with it, familiarize yourself, especially right now that you have this time to really go through all of the information, learn all about all the marketing information that's out there, learn about the language guides, pull a couple of them up. Even if you don't speak the language, just so you can see what they look like. I pulled up the Spanish one, the Russian one, a couple of the Arabic one as well. Familiarize yourself with what our outreach materials are out there, so you can feel prepared once you're out in the public. As Misty said, there's so many guidelines on media. If you don't know, don't guess. Please make sure you ask questions. You always have support, not just by the SEO, but by the entire partnership team, as well as the media specialist team. We're all here to help you. So keep all of these things in mind, and make sure that you ask for help if needed.
Yeah, we are all one team after one mission, and that's to get people to respond to the census. So if you have questions, please ask them. Again, just be courteous. Do not say whatever your opinion is. Stick to the census script, so to speak. And and then have fun. Enjoy, working out in the community. It is so much fun for me when I go out with the partnership specialists and stuff, and just see how I was the same way. I didn't know majority of the information before I started working for the Census Bureau, and a lot of the community is the same way. So it's fun for them to see them kind of like, what? I didn't know that this helps with that. So it's just good. Familiarize yourself. Look at all the great information that the site has. Also, the Census.gov site has even a lot more information if you're really looking for some stuff. So have fun with it and enjoy your job.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all part of this, once in a decade count of the American public. So, be proud of that. You are helping your community. You're helping us, and you're helping your community and helping the America prepare for the next 10 years. So, you do have an important job and a job that has lasting effects for the next 10 years. So With that, we will sign off. We thank you for joining us for today's training. Like we said, if you have any questions, please reach out to your local ACO, as well as your local partnership specialist and your local media specialist for any more information on anything that we went over today. A couple of other things that we went through today will also be explained further and more in depth in some of the trainings that you will have later on this week. So thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching today's session. The recording will now end.